Okay, so we have our GSF Uncut interview right here. And, the way we do this is like we just do it. Coach is walking. I'm chilling in my living room. How's it going, Coach?
It's going great. It's going great.
So why don't we start this way? I mean, just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay. Yeah. Julian Kenion. Played. Grew up in Vallejo, California. Moved to Vacaville for high school. And then Sacramento later for college. Grew up all my life playing sports. It's always been a passion of mine, as well as a lot of the staff on KT, to give back to the areas that we had, grew up in and originated from. So, that's kind of how we started this. My cousin Nathan, he wanted to provide a platform for the Bay Area, Vallejo, the under kind of served areas that really didn't have the platform like we have now growing up. So that's kind of where everything kind of started from.
So you kind of answered my next question, but if you could go a little bit further, what exactly is KT Prep? And
Yeah.
yeah.
So KT Prep is, I would kind of describe it as an all-encompassing program. We do a lot of the things, on the field, but we also preach a lot of things off the field. From an academic standpoint, from a mentorship standpoint, from the community aspects, but on the field. Of course, the basis is a 7-on-7 program, but we're really a skill and technique and development-based program, and that's really our emphasis as far as really developing these kids beyond just a kind of a competitive 7-on-7 environment, so they can translate their skills and development to the next level on and off the field.
Hey, man, I just want to let you know, I wore my red and white too, so we can match.
Those are the colors. Those are the right colors. That's the right colors.
KT colors. Now, some of you guys are doing really well this season, and I've been stalking you on Twitter because I think it's a great source of information. It's like who's doing good, who's doing that, and I always see a list.
It is.
Can you just talk about some of the guys that are doing well from your organization?
Yeah, of course. We have guys like a Zeke Berry, who's at De La Salle, Hassan, who's at Sarah, some of the bigger name guys in the Bay Area. But we also have a lot of, younger kids, too, that are kind of coming through that are, really developing. Caleb Madrid over at Ceremon Valley, who's a sophomore. Aaron Woodard, who's at El Cerrito, who's a big-time sophomore coming through the program. And even kind of across the board, we have a running back at Vacaville High School, Darian, who's got 9 TDs in 3 games. So, we have a lot of guys kind of, some who already kind of have a platform or a name notoriety, but a lot of other kind of undiscovered guys so far, that are really, showing out this year and balling out. And they worked hard all off season. So it's kind of the expectation that they're, going to perform. And we couldn't be happier that these kids are performing the way that they've been working towards.
So I was looking at your Twitter, and I like your pinned tweet with Romello Murphy and Tyrese Ivy Jr. from Sacred Heart Cathedral. I've seen those 2 guys play, and I was really looking forward to Romello coming back, but I know he's at Santa Margarita right now. But this is just an out-of-the-blue questions. I've heard of a few talents from NorCal going elsewhere to play football. Is that kind of like a growing trend with a lot of young talents, like, the 8th graders coming up and stuff?
You have some that trickle through. I think even though when we were growing up, there was, I think it still happened. It's just with social media, with the news articles kind of riding every big transfer and, the parent aspect and kids kind of having access to social media. You hear a lot about it. I'm an 8th grader going to, this school and kind of so on and so forth. But honestly, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a trend. It's kind of just those one-off situations. It's not yet gotten to that point. Who knows what it'll be like in the future. But I would say still predominantly you're still seeing most of the top, youth kids are still funneling their way up to Bay Area high schools, for sure.
So what do you think about the whole transfer rule? I know in SoCal there's a lot of going back and forth, and everybody ends up in the Trinity League.
It's hard because I think, obviously, I feel and we feel that, kids should obviously play for, their neighboring schools and, you know, funnel that system into obviously the public system or the private schools or whatever. But really, obviously, like I said, especially for us, we want the kids to give the Bay Area a platform. So the last thing we would want to see is a Bay Area kid leave the area, But it's tough because, there's so many other elements that I think that we could do a whole show on that I think a lot of people don't understand. But for a lot of these kids that are making decisions in SoCal, I think sometimes the media, the news articles kind of paint a certain picture as far as it being a lot more complex issue for the kids to get to the school, when for a lot of situations, and kind of talking to people in that area, it's pretty simple. The process has become pretty simple for kids to transfer when, like you said, growing up, it was a lot different as far as like the paperwork, the moving, saying California just has so many elements to that kind of induce or, put kids in the position to be able to transfer. Public transportation, all these different things that these kids have access to that they can then transfer that, parents just get a lot more creative with the situation. But I mean, obviously, like I said, I'm someone who that, was a public school kid. We have people on our staff that are private school kids. At the end of the day, as long as the kid is doing well academically, as long as they're performing well on the field and doing the things they need to do off the field, I'm always going to support a kid no matter what their decision on. And at the end of the day, if you're going to get mad at a kid for doing that decision, you better go talk to those parents, because at the end of the day, as I always tell people, it's the parents who are making the decisions. And a lot of people like to hate on the kids, but they won't go talk to the parents. So
yeah, that is true. Well, KT Prep, I'm a big fan. I've always been. I try to keep up with you guys in the off season, and I'm familiar with what you guys do. And I've heard so many positive things about your organization. But what does it take to wear the KT gear?
Man, it takes a lot. I mean, it's not something that we take lightly, because, like you said, when you do have a certain, standard that we try to uphold. So, there's a lot of commitment. There's a lot of things that, like I said, I can get into as far as the academics, as far as attendance, as far as, being available, communication, effort, energy, a competitive nature, all these things that we kind of preach in our program. So it's a lot. I mean, it's not something that comes lightly. And a lot of the kids that you probably see, coming through on social media, those kids have put in a lot of work, a lot of, effort and energy, and their parents too as well. And that's something that we appreciate. So that's something that when we, see that, that they're putting towards our program, we want to obviously give that back tenfold back to the kids. And so I think that's probably what you see a lot of times from the social media aspect, as far as us kind of pouring that love out there publicly, is there's so much, things that go on behind the scenes that we're really working to build these relationships with these kids and these parents, that, it's only right that we kind of, show them off to the world and kind of present them in a way that, is indicative of how much work they're putting into the program.
I think you hit it right on there. My next question was, why do you think 7-on-7 gets a lot of hate? I do know a few organizations. I'm not going to name the bad ones, but I do know that you guys do a lot behind the scenes, and there's a lot more to the backflips and the fancy catches and the one-handed catches and the nice gear. But why do you think there's some hate from other high school coaches and even the media? I mean, I don't, but, even the media, they write negative things about it.
I mean, I think just like anything else, it's the unknown. I mean, obviously, if you don't know something, and sometimes I feel like it's not necessarily hate. I think that's a strong word. I think it's just kind of the unknown. Obviously, you don't know who's on these staffs, and they're not knowing, how, what's the motives behind the things that these programs are doing. So it's just kind of, I would say, a cautionary type of like reservedness, I guess you would say. But I mean, for us, it's just something that kind of I always have open lines of communication. If you looked at my Twitter DMs, I have quite a few head coaches of high schools that, we're communicating on different things as far as like making sure everyone's on the same page. And Nate, obviously being a defense coordinator at De La Salle, we've had many coaches on our staff who coach at the high school level. So we always understand, that the importance is always going to be about high school. I mean, that's the one thing we preach to our kids is, all the things that you do with us, it has to translate to Friday nights. So, I mean, that's something that is big for us is building relationships with high schools, but also making sure that our kids are in position to be successful in a high school setting more so than any 7-on-7 setting. So that's really big for us. I mean, I love high school football. If it wasn't COVID times, I'm kind of a coach that likes to go see a lot of different games and things like that. So I'm out in the Bay Area watching our kids play. So it's all about Friday nights or Saturday mornings or Saturday afternoons nowadays with the schedule. So.
Well, you pretty much answered my next questions about as far as like communication with the actual high school coach of the players. But I just looked on Twitter earlier today and I saw Javon. I think he's a guaranteed going to pro kind of player. We were a big fan of his when he was at Oregon and even back in the Bishop O'Dowd days. But how many guys do you guys have in the league or even in college right now? What's the rough number?
Oh man, it's a lot. It's a lot. As far as the NFL guys, Nevin Asiasi, Javon White, we've had Kevin Davidson get drafted. Obviously, Javon's kind of heading there. But as far as kind of funneling through the pipeline, there's quite a few guys that will be, as they can kind of continue to work hard at the college level, they're going to put themselves in a position to reach that point. But as far as the college level, I mean, we got a lot of guys from D3 to D2 to FCS to FBS. I mean, that's something we're proud of as far as not just, the big name guys like you mentioned, but, there's a lot of guys that right now are having amazing springs. Yeah. Daniel Wright at Weber Spade. Amir Wallace was just named his league player of the week over at San Diego. Jalil Budget, cornerback at UC Davis. Amir Wallace at San Diego. So, Balewa Bird at Morehead State. I got to give all my guys a shout out. So, like I said, there's a lot of guys that right now are balling, and we equally try to show that love to everyone across the program. You know what I'm saying? Not just the Javon Hollins.
Yeah. Well, you kind of mentioned the pandemic, but how were you guys able to control your operation with the pandemic? Like, how were you able to manage that?
I mean, like I said, it's all communication as far as just kind of taking a step back and really kind of evaluating and putting things, this is kind of what you need to do, how you're going to do it. And then the main thing is just communication. I mean, anything that we're doing, we're having constant meetings and communication with our parents, with high schools, with, obviously, looking at the guidelines that are out there. And like I said, we're following the rules and restrictions and doing all those different things. So it's just kind of really, I mean, it sounds easy, but sometimes it's hard. And really all you're doing is just kind of processing a lot of information. It's kind of so easy to sometimes just make, obviously, a rash decision because you're kind of frustrated. But all we kind of did was basically sit back and with the information that was presented to us and, the restrictions, the rules, and kind of everything. And we just kind of, pushed forward and make sure everything was, communicated and what we were doing when we were doing it with our parents. Like I said, of course, we want to take care of the kids, because it's all about having that trust between us and the parents. And so, I mean, that's pretty much it.
Nice. So what's the future of KT Prep 7-on-7? Are you guys looking to expand to the 11-on-11? Have branches all over the nation and things like that?
Man, we got a lot of plans. I can't really tell you everything we got planned. We got a lot of plans. I wouldn't say we're probably headed towards the 11-on-11. Like I said, for us, like I said, with obviously having coaches on the staff at, in high school level, we feel that there's still the most significant value is always going to be the high school. I think you've kind of seen that, as far as the recruiting aspect and kind of as far as the, kind of what's really building these kids up development-wise. So for that's always going to be something that we're always going to work in congruence with, not necessarily kind of go directly in competitive with. And then also, obviously, in California, you want to have a period where kids are getting development and getting better and training and all those different things. But you also don't want to get to a situation where kids are playing 25 games a year. You know what I'm saying? That's just not smart. I mean, obviously, NFL, as people might see, NFL guys are just complaining about playing 17 games. and they're grown men. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to say to a 16-year-old kid, you got to play 25 games. So it's just like, I don't see us going that angle, but, you know, we got a lot of things up our sleeve, as always. You know, like I said, I can't really tell you all those things, but as always, we're always going to be, you know, pushing the boundaries and kind of pushing our program to kind of new heights and everything like that.
Well, Coach, are you trying to get your 5,000 steps for the day?
Trying to, man, trying to.
Hey, I do that too. But I love the fact that you've made time for this, and we've been trying to schedule this for like the last couple of weeks.
I know, my fault. As we see, like I said, we got it in during the workout, but we got it in.
Yeah, we got it in, and well, it's been truly educational, and I'm glad we did this. So, best of luck to your guys, and I will see you in person too one of these days. You know, when everything is opened up and we can
June
actually
15th.
Go to games.
June 15th, that's what they say. So hopefully everything is handled. We can get back to the get down. So yeah, it's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate you for reaching out. Obviously, you know, I appreciate you reaching out to us. But for any, you know, we're all about the Bay Area and NorCal, and so anytime, you know, we can provide a voice or help put the Bay Area in a platform or NorCal in general, it's always a blessing. So I appreciate you reaching out for us.
Wow, I'll always promote KT Prep for sure.
All right, man. Thank you.